Okay, I think we are live. Welcome, everybody. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Looked like Commissioner Strikeman was ready, so you can lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. We've got Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Here.
Councilmember Steele.
Present.
And the chair, Masha Cummings. I am present. The rest should be joining us at their leisure, but they're not on the committee, so this is the core group. Let's see. On the agenda today, we have 5 updates from the planning department and various stakeholders. The first is from Bryce Properties on a proposed development project. The second is the Monument Square grant agreements. The third is the tax abatement and home rule for New York State. The third is enabling legislation for the IDA. And the fifth is the Diamond Rock sale. So that being said, I'm going to turn over the agenda to Commissioner Strikeman.
All right, thank you. I'm going to start with a quick description before I bring up a presentation for you here. David Bryce has a proposal to redevelop the atrium, which eventually will lead to the redoing of the parking garage. And the reason I'm presenting it to you is there are a number of things that he needs commitments from the city council. And I just want you to be aware that they're coming. You really can't commit. You're kind of a catch-22. You really can't commit until he goes through planning commission and has his approval. Then you can commit. But I want to make sure that concurrently you're looking at what the proposal is, so that you'll know what is exactly going to happen. So now I'm gonna. Can you see my screen there? No, you can't until I hit the word share. Can you see that? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So basically, the plan starts with the redevelopment of the atrium, and it requires certain pieces of land from the city. We haven't negotiated any of them yet. Some of them are parkland and will require home rule approval, and the state has to basically sign off on those. We may swap for them. If you're going to give up parkland, you're going to have to replace it somewhere. And so he has some potential land. We also have other land that we haven't put in the park systems, so we may be able to opt for doing that as well. It's a little too early to tell right now what shape that's gonna take. If you look at the picture here, you can see on the left, this is the existing layout of the plaza with the CVS in the upper right, where it says Freer Retail. The retail offices, which was the state, the atrium in the middle. And the plan is basically to tear down this retail location there, relocate CVS in the corner, and then build parking with an entrance in this location that will be start on the ground. It will also going in here. It will go down below. And this will be several layers, and I think creates around 600 spaces so that he can start offsetting the parking across the street. You can see where all the entrances are. I believe this is a really, the building has it has loading docks on Fulton Street currently and loading docks over here on Broadway. This will be really nice to centralize them in one location, bring back the retail components and the nice frontage of the building. And we don't quite have the renderings. I have some kind of concepts you can look at, but that's really not up for discussion really right now. It hasn't even gone to planning commission and he's finalizing those designs. But this next piece here shows basically what he will want from us. So there's the atrium here in the center. And right now, the city owns that. He's got a long-term management agreement. We don't see any revenue from that. There's a couple requirements of what he has to do to be able to manage that. I don't think it's really something we want. He is the only person that can really benefit. He owns the land on both sides of that. To the south on Broadway this is where there is park area, and you'd like to be able to, and if you look at that facade doesn't really present too well. So he wants to build that out and create entrances as I showed on the previous page, but it would require alienation of this parkland and then a sale to him of that. Along the northeast corner, in order to build this parking garage and maintain the Freer building, the only way to do that is he needs 2 feet of sidewalk. So it would include the 2 feet of sidewalk. Right now, if you remember, there's a wide sidewalk there, and 4th Street is actually very wide there as well. So there are options. We'll let him design how that's going to function, but there are options to allow for that. I believe that the atrium also probably needs alienation. I'm not sure, but it's public space. It's been used as public space. So we're looking into that. This area over here, Mr. Bryce owns. I think it says in here that there's an easement, and we'll have to look into that. So we may have to get rid of the easement, but I haven't even talked to Chris Whalen yet if there's utilities under there or not. But that is, we'll have to have those 4 areas cleared up. So that's basically what the ask will be eventually. And the tough part about this all is also he has to get through planning commission. And if he wants to get in the ground this year, we really need to get him through fast so we can get legislation to the state to be able to abandon those pieces of property. So that's basically up to Dave Bryce and Barb Nelson working on his behalf, who's here if you have any questions for her. I'm just going to show you, you can see the existing atrium. And here are some concepts on how, this is another atrium location. So what it could potentially look like, and it's bigger, it's a winter garden now. So it's a much more usable space, and the farmer's market would continue to be able to use the space as well as potentially being able to use the space where the Department of Labor was on Broadway. And I'll send this along to you. There's just kind of a summary of the facts of the land, which I'm not going to get into right now, and some potential renderings looking from 3rd Street, the existing Freer building. This is the existing elevation, and this is proposed. So he'd have most of it's lower in the front and then builds up in the back. So he's going to do a significant amount of residential in there as well, but a lot of commercial and office space as well. So that's pretty much, I don't know, Barb, if I have to go to this last one. That's a view from Broadway, and that's okay. And this is just showing us where the loading docks will be moved to this entrance. You can see the picture down below. So it's a pretty significant development there. I think that is kind of between the parking garage and the way that building is mostly walled off, a very dead area of downtown that should be an active area of downtown. And that's part of David's vision, is to allow that to happen. But he's going to need us when he gets to that point to be able to support the project. So that's all I had to say about that. I don't know if anyone has questions for me or for Barb. This will come back at a later date. If you want a presentation as he goes to the Planning Commission, you can come back and do a presentation at a future date to the Planning Commission as we start working out the details here. But this was really more of an update.
I've got one question, although if any other council members want to go first.
Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Ashby Grayson.
Steve, I don't know. I'm more of a visual, and I like to see everything up front. And I don't know if it would be you or with Barb or who else, if I could take a walk around and see the site as you're going to also. Is that possible?
I'll let Barb speak
Sure,
to that.
I'd be glad to do that.
Okay.
It is a large kind of complex project, so it is hard to get your head around, but walking the site would be fine. I'd be glad to do that.
Okay, good. So Barb, I'll set up some with you so I can walk around it with you and get a better, I mean, I'm not an architect and whatnot, an engineer looking at the graphs and whatnot. I'm better looking at the building and the site itself.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. And anybody else is welcome.
I just figured it was important to at least start the education on the project.
Oh, absolutely.
I have a question about the alienation process. just given the state timelines and all of our timelines, is there any reason to start that process sooner than later? Do we need to wait for the planning process, or does it have a better chance of getting through the state if we've gone through the full planning process? I don't know that there's any other plans for any of this property, so I don't see why it would hurt to just start the process.
If you wanted to, we could start the process and obviously make the alienation contingent on, I think we did that with Skolite actually, as we got approval to sell the land on the riverfront there, and it never happened. So we could potentially start the process on those pieces if you wanted to, and at least get them queued up. And then we never transfer them, we never transfer
with
them.
the state legislature timeline.
No, I think that's a really good idea.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Chair,
Yes.
sorry, are you done?
Go ahead.
Can you just tell me again, what are they looking to put in to fill these spots?
So it is, well, the CVS is relocating. There's retail
CVS.
locations. There's the farmer's market at the south end, which is a significant space. Barb, do you have more details on most of it?
Before you go there, sorry, hold on. Is the farmer's market going to be a permanent home for them there or no?
Yeah, yes, they anticipate that they would have a permanent presence there. There would be maybe 20 or so vendors that might be year round. And everybody else it would be the winter market the way we know it. They would spill out into the winter garden, and in the summer they would spill out onto the street.
That's the way that.
But there would be a percentage of vendors that would have sort of vendor stalls, maybe a glass garage door comes down. But I believe that David will require, anyone who opts for that will have to be open a certain number of days a week and not just have a shuttered stall. But it is basically a combination of offices and retail, and then there's a lobby for the residential component. So everything above is pretty much 4 or 5 stories of residential apartments. The CVS will stay. The small vendors, well, they'll be relocated, but they'll still be in the mix. So
Do we know how many apartments you're looking at?
It's
on that tally there.
I'll look at it right now. It's
100.
Actually, I don't see it on there.
No, it's not.
Two
No, it's on
stories
the
steel
EAF.
structure. Parking 400. It's 432 proposed. I misspoke on that.
Yes.
But I don't.
432 apartments?
No. Parking space.
432 parking spaces.
I think it might be 100 apartments. It's not. Oh, I'll find out for you.
Thank you.
I can follow up with you on that.
Should have it.
Thanks.
Okay.
Let the record show that Councilmembers Zalewski and Council President Mantello have joined us. Thank you both for joining us. And just so you know, we're in the midst of the first agenda item, which is the Bryce property. Really just an overview at this point, but if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them now.
Council or Chair,
Yes.
I apologize for being late. I am back in the office now, so a whirlwind for me this week, but thank you, and I will make sure that I review the meeting, and I will contact Mr. Bryce if I have any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Chair,
Yes. Councilmember.
I just want to clarify, Steve, you will be sending us your presentation?
I will send you what I just sent. I'll email it right after this meeting.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
Okay.
And then the only other obstacle that I've ever heard with regard to the alienation here is the utilities. I assume you're starting those discussions with the water department. Are there any significant utility possible barriers that you've discovered along the way so far?
Not yet. No, we still have to, we actually just got the Alta survey, which talks about all the ownerships and easements. So we're just starting to look into that. So we'll take care of that fast. And then if it's the council's preferred method, we can come back to at least get these things in action, should we need to do it, get them in action with the state.
I think
So
that
we
makes
can-
sense. Sooner the better with the state. Great, thank you.
Okay.
Steve, I'm
Thank you,
having
Barb.
trouble connecting to my office files, so I'll just text it to you during the meeting. You can move on in your agenda, but I'll let you know how many apartments,
Okay, you want to text them to me and I'll
Yeah.
come back and thanks.
or in the chat, or I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, so that's it for item number 1. You want me to just go right into item number 2, or do you have to announce it?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay, so the second item is the Monument Square. It's not so much Monument Square that we're talking about, but it's the Northern Borders Regional Commission grant. So last year with Dylan Turek, we submitted an application where the Local Development Corporation was the applicant and the city was the co-applicant with it. We were successful in receiving a $1 million grant that will be used to work on infrastructure to get the site ready, moving the water, moving the sewer lines, creating a stormwater separation, shoring up the retaining wall, clearing around areas in the park. And there may be areas within the park that we need to impact, as well as the land that the city is going to retain, the 50 feet between the building and the river. So this grant is matched by the Department of State money that we have, and that money expires on December 31st. I'm on my second final extension on that one. So I'm concerned that we're not going to get another extension on that. And that money is matched with cash that the city has for this project in the bank, about 1.2 million dedicated to this project. Because this is going to be a city project where the city's going to bid it out and do the work, and we'd like to try and get the work going over the summer, the money's going to get reimbursed back to the city instead of the Local Development Corporation. Regardless, the city would have had to approve accepting either the money through the LDC or from Northern Borders. So what we decided to do after speaking with Northern Borders was just to amend the grant so that the applicant is the city for the $1 million. They'll do the bidding on it. So what's needed right now are 3 things. One is to accept the grant. And I copied that grant agreement there. That's already, the one I sent you initially had the Troy Local Development Corporation. The one that will go out tomorrow with the legislation is amended with the city of Troy being the grant recipient. So it's to accept the $1 million grant and authorize the mayor to execute any documents necessary for that. The second item is the local development, LDD, the local development, I can't remember the name now, is the administrator of this grant is the capital.
Corporation, right? Corporation.
No, it's not us. It's the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, and they're the
sorry.
local. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it, and then I forgot it. But they administer this, and they get $14,000 of that $1 million. So we need to enter into an agreement with them as well, and they've helped us so far coordinating with MBR, and they'll be helping us with monitoring the grant. So they have a role to play for $14,000. And the third thing is the Local Development Corporation has already spent money on this project, not related to the grant, just because they have the option. And I'm not talking about that money. That's money that the LDC has spent. They may spend some funding related to the grant. They may not. But if they do, then we just really want an MOU that if there are any eligible expenses that the city would, fund that money back, or at least the reimbursement portion of it back to the Local Development Corporation. So I can't imagine it being more than maybe $60,000 for maybe a study or something that the LDC does. to make this occur faster. But those are the 3 items that I'm looking for here, or at least I'll look for next week at the Finance Committee. But I wanted to mention them today, at least as an update. As far as the project's going, they've been working very hard. The renderings are coming together. A lot of it was, as I said before, because they're not building what was designed in the charrette, we're making sure that they do provide the elements of the charrette. So that's taken a bit of work. And so they're still preparing those and hopefully getting to the plan now is to be before the Planning Commission in March. But before that, they'll have a public presentation. So that's where that stands. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on that, but those are the 3 items needed for that.
So this is largely, it seems like, sort of site work, getting stuff ready for the development. It's not the development itself. Is that, first of all, a correct understanding of the totality of the scope of this?
Correct. There may be some shared elements. I mean, we may excavate down somewhere in an area where they'd have to excavate down anyways.
Sure.
So there could be things that are slightly shared, but for the most part, there are going to be elements that are needed for the site prep, things we could do really to make the thing shovel ready to sell.
Yep.
Except we already have a buyer.
And then from both grants' perspective, should unforeseen curses on this property manifest themselves, do they require that the whole project get completed or that this site work get completed?
They're basically designed around future development regardless of what happens. Supplying sewer to the buildings to the south, relocating the water line there out from underneath the footprint of the building, taking the stormwater, the combined sewer that runs through the stairs right now and excavating out through the stairs basically and replacing them with lines.
We get reimbursement based on completion of those steps, not based on completion of the whole project.
Not correct, just based on completion of the site prep work as outlined.
Great. Then that all sounds pretty good. Let's see. I did see sort of reinforcement of the wall as part of the scope. The retaining wall, is that the seawall or the retaining wall on the other side of the property?
That is the retaining wall, and initially we had anticipated more excavation of the stairs and building out on the full site. That part may remain a plaza area, so we might not have to do that. So again, we're still determining what the project is. We're just lining everything up to be ready to go when we have it.
Understood.
And spending as much money as we can that would have to be spent anyways before the Department of State grant runs out.
Sure.
Sure.
Yep, Councilmember Gully, and welcome.
Hey, nice to see you guys. Hey, Steve, just for curiosity, have they shown you any type of renderings or drawings yet? Have you seen anything that?
I've seen quite a bit. They've moved along pretty far. So
has anybody else seen them that's here?
Not,
any council members?
Not yet. No, we're still kind of finessing them to make sure, as you know, this site has had enough problems before. We want to make sure that when we come out, we've got something good. I could, at some point, probably pretty soon, we might be able to share some stuff individually. But again, I think the plan is to be, public with this probably in late February. So in time for a March meeting, so that it's been vetted and seen before it gets to the Planning Commission.
Okay, great. Thank you. What's your opinion on the drawing that you did see?
It came a long way. I loved what I see now. Again, we had to go back to the charrette to say, you got to do this. You got to do that.
Stick to your guns.
Yep. Okay, any other questions on that? Or
Yep, Chair.
Yes, Council President Mantello.
Yep, no problem. Steve and I actually, I appreciate the heads up and updating us on this. And, I guess, my biggest concern, as I had hesitancy, and I was very hesitant transferring the project to the LDC, but it sounds like, you know, part of it, somewhat in terms of the funding is coming back onto the city's responsibility. And I just want to make sure, you know, as Councilmember Gali mentioned, that the rendering, you know, that folks are included, it is going to be public. And I am a little concerned about the DOS grant, and I understand we obviously, you know, have already asked twice to extend it. Is that a hard line? And do you feel that the monies are going to be used in time of the expiration of that grant?
That is the intent. I mean, if we're 90% done and not done, or 80% done, but we're substantially underway, then I'll certainly have to go back and attempt an extension. But the plan is to spend that money this year. And it's getting harder. It's getting harder as time goes. So I want to get everything moving as we go.
Yeah.
Or moving before we go.
And, you know, Chair, with COVID, do you feel, there might be a little leniency with that, but do you feel that the schedule with COVID is still doable? And once again, I just want to make sure, because obviously they trimmed down the initial proposal in terms of the buildings and all, but I want to make sure, obviously, that the view shed, you know, that the amenities that were discussed, and, you know, obviously the connection to the waterfront and the trail, that is still all preserved.
It's all there. Again, that was as important to us, you know, as it was, as important to me as it is to the residents, the rest of the people downtown, and everybody who was there who spoke out. So yes, we are continuing to ensure that everybody will be happy. And again, that's why it's taken so long to go back and revise it and work on that.
Okay. All right. Okay. Please keep us in the loop as it continues to move forward. Thank you.
All right. So unless there's any other questions on that, I'm going to move into the 485 tax exemption. So this is, and I'm going to share the screen. You've got the memo from me. And I'm just going to show the memo again. So what this is this is an abatement that's eligible. Is that showing? Is my memo showing to you?
It is.
Okay. This is an abatement that's eligible for people who own and live in, or even don't live in, 1 to 4 units in the census tracts in the lowlands, basically, of the city, excluding downtown. And basically, everybody's always saying, how come the big guys get the development or get the benefits and I don't? And so this satisfies part of that. But also what it does is it creates an incentive so that if you do an improvement on your property, you don't get an immediate hit with a tax increase. So we're looking to try and make it affordable for people. And we're also looking at other things as well, especially in Lansingburg, to create a historic district that would create a 20% tax credit with no additional real restrictions that doesn't require historic district review with the city. So we're looking at trying to do that this year as well. We're working on that. So this basically allows, if you have $100,000 house and you do $100,000 worth of work on it, and the assessor decides it's now worth $150,000, you don't get taxed on that additional $50,000 right away. It phases in over 15 years, and it's really tailored around other. I call it a 485 because that's the section of code it is in the real property tax law. There's a 485A, there's a 485B that we have for commercial, and I think that's for 8 years. So there's a number of them, and they're all tailored specifically to most of them are tailored to specific counties. So this would be tailored specifically to Troy. I have asked the school districts and the county as well if they would be willing to support an opt-in upfront on this. So either way, we can approve it at the city level, and they can opt in after it gets approved at the state level. Or we can all approve it and write letters now, and they're all in with us for the duration. So I've talked to Lansingburg, I've talked to the city school district as well, and it's being talked about right now at the county as well. So regardless, they can either opt in now or they can opt in later. The way the legislation is written right now, it allows for them to, it's considering they're all going to opt in now, but by the time it gets to the state will fix that if that's not the case. You can see the schedule of the abatement here, and there were some typos that I made in the legislation that you've got that I had to correct. And one of them was when I started looking at the schedule, this was kind of hard to describe. So what we did instead was we went 4 years at 100, and then it goes down to 75, and then it goes down by 10 per year to 65, 55, 45, 35. And then it starts going down by 5 a year. And I'll get you that updated memo for that. There were also a couple typos in what I had sent you originally, that this would start in 2020. It actually starts in 2021 in July, and a couple numbers that didn't line up. So there were some just corrections in what I sent you that will be corrected by the time you get it next Thursday. And, or actually by the time you get it Friday, it's already been corrected and sent out. So that's what this is. And again, these are some real tougher areas where it's hard to realize your return. It's hard to make the investment because your taxes go up, your rents are lower. And I just think this is, Dylan Turek worked on this a lot and did some research on what other places have had and what works. And this is what we crafted to come up with to provide a benefit for smaller buildings.
Okay.
Chair.
Yeah, we have a question from Councilmember Ashman Grayson.
Yep. Steve, this is on residential as well as, correct?
It's on up to 4 units, so it can be 3 residential and 1 commercial, basically, as written.
Okay, so
Small mixed use.
so you're looking at maybe a 15-year if they want to pay back. What happens if they sell the property within
If they
that
sell
time?
the property, so there's 2 things. If they sell the property, it's done. It goes back up to full value. Okay, because they've gotten their money. It goes back up to full value. So that'll kind of impact what price they can sell it for, obviously, but it doesn't run to the next owner.
So the
And
next
then
one would not carry over.
No.
Okay.
That's
And there's also,
that
if the city does a reval, there's a formula in there for kind of making sure that divisions and multiplications to make sure that they get the same benefit even with the new assessment.
So that creates an incentive for longer term property owners that are really investing in the community rather than just flipping.
Right.
Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Steele.
Steve, can you just explain briefly what determines the qualifying census tracts?
These are, well, they are basically CDBG eligible census tracts. So they're all CDBG eligible census tracts with the exception of downtown. I mean, we could put in downtown if you wanted to. Most of those are larger properties, but not all. But it was just determined we're trying to, there's investment in the downtown area. There's investment just south of the immediate downtown. And so we wanted to try and get some incentives for other areas within the city. I think you're already seeing the investment. You're already seeing a lot of the investment downtown, so there's not a real reason to give an additional, to incentivize it. Okay.
Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Gurley.
Steve, I think this is a great way to get people energized to raise the value in these outskirt areas. And I like the plan. I mean, now we're finally going to the 1-family home, the 2-family home, the small business guy that owns 2 flats and a store downstairs and giving them an opportunity to invest in their properties. And that's a benefit throughout the city. We have seen a lot of that in downtown, but I can't remember the last time since that darn, sidewalk program they had or something, and a facade program that they had, that something was put into the homeowners and the small landlords, So I like the program. I like what you're bringing forward and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah. I would be remiss if I didn't make a brief statement about just what I'm seeing downtown anyway, is that those incentives are definitely in place for the large developers doing big projects. We do still see the smaller projects take a long time to move forward because of the financing packages and because it's not worthwhile for them or available for them to go through the pilot process. And so, certainly I think we should have a deeper discussion about the pros and cons around including that neighborhood as well.
Chairman.
Sure.
Yeah. Who was that? Was that Councilmember
me.
Galuski? Go ahead.
Yeah. Steve, thank you for putting this together. I know we talked about this briefly in the past. One of my concerns, of course, representing the East Side neighborhood, where you've got a lot of homes that are larger, old, and it's interesting. You drive down Pauling Avenue, and people say, "Oh, it looks so beautiful and everything," but if you look really, really closely, there's definitely deterioration going on with a lot of these properties. And I think as folks get older, or younger couples are buying up some properties, they don't realize what they're getting into and the maintenance that's required on these large, older homes. So I guess my question is, is it possible to extend this type of program to other areas of the city, especially, in the East Side, where, repairs are sometimes prohibitively expensive, and we really want to keep up these historic properties, and folks, they're just disincentivized to do it because they know that, oh, if they fix up my property, I'm going to get punished for doing the right thing. I mean, that's the whole idea, is that the notion that you hammer someone for for improving their property makes them not want to do that, and this type of program, I think, is wonderful because it really incentivizes maintaining properties. But what would it take to get it in other parts of the city, for example, on the East Side neighborhood?
Well, I think that's up to the city council. Are you losing taxes that you're going to get anyways is the question. I mean, I think those are the areas where you're more likely to see the investment. And yes, it does penalize people who do the investment. But I guess I would say it's really, a city council call if you wanted to extend it to other areas. I feel like the areas that really need it are the ones we targeted on, where we really needed to see the investment to get a rising ship of all the properties in the area. A rising tide.
I want to comment on that, actually, because we can go on for a long time, and I don't want to. I'm not even a member of the committee, so we are also talking about the assessment update, and preliminary evidence would indicate that properties on the East Side are selling at or below their assessed value versus properties in South Troy, downtown, that are selling above, sometimes well above their assessed value. In fact, I just had we were talking about with the Osgood and Little Italy groups last night, community builders, and that property, Steve, you're aware of it, the Post and Kill Place project. And that property is assessed at $470,000, and that they paid over $700,000 for it. So, and that, again, that's a South Troy or South Central property. So I guess my issue is that it seems like there is a lot of interest and investment in those areas, and I'm concerned that the East Side may end up having this problem of derelict properties. And these are just tough property. I mean, I know I'm in one of them, and we have the means to maintain it, and it's difficult. It really is difficult to keep up on this stuff, and I'm just concerned about folks that have been in their homes for a long time. People on fixed income that know that they need to fix up certain things, but they just don't want to get hammered with the greater taxes. So anyway, I want to throw that out there. That's all.
Okay.
Fair.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember Gully.
Steve, maybe I was a little confused. I thought this was for I know you wanted to target some areas, but I thought this was going to be for, all the areas, the homeowners and small homeowners. Let me ask you a question. Would there be a difference of impact with, hello? Would there be a
I'm here.
difference of impact if it was opened up throughout the city to homeowners instead of like the big commercial like Kernan areas?
Well, so it's not written specifically for homeowners. It's written for 1 to 4 units. Okay, so I mean, I guess it could be amended to be for owner occupants in other areas if you wanted to do something like that. But again, I think I understand both sides of the argument here. So the city will get, some of these are going to happen anyways, more likely in these other areas. I think Posting Kill Place, I believe that one is, it looks like it's just on the border of 409 and downtown. So I brought the map up again just so you could see the areas I was talking that were targeted here, the colored ones, the ones that are colored and have the circles and ovals in them. So, I mean, if the council wanted me to look at doing something else, or if you wanted to come back and amend this legislation in a year based on how it works out, we could always do that. You could add in paragraphs, you could add in census tracts with different requirements and different census tracts.
So,
Sorry.
yeah, sorry, just so, and I see the council president has her hand up. I'll go to you in a second, but I just wanted to clarify from the state perspective, we're just being authorized broadly, and then we are limiting it just through our local law, and that can be changed at any point. Is that correct, or does it have to be set in stone at the state level from the beginning?
Well, whatever we give to the state is what we're asking for. So if we give them something, if we give them it as it's written now, that's what we give them, and that's what they do. Although I'm sure they'll have some corrections to come back and say, you need to word this differently, or well, we're only going to let you go 14 years. Maybe they'll do something like that. Who knows? But as we give it to them is how they get it and what they'll do with it. So if we would like to make changes, we either do them now before we submit it, or we do it in a year after it's adopted. But we can't do it in
a resubmission.
It would. I think it would be an amendment to the law. We would amend the state legislation.
Okay. If I could jump in, Chair.
Yeah, great.
Perfect. Thank you. First and foremost, I can't talk a whole lot about it. I have to recuse myself because I actually oversee legislation. But saying that, any changes I would strongly recommend doing now to go back to the ledge to try to get another home rule is going to be difficult. It's just time consuming, more difficult. My recommendation, I totally agree with Councilmember Zalewski and Councilmember Gully. So I would say put what you want in now, then obviously ask the state ledge, get a bill number, they'll come back, pass a home rule, boom, hopefully it passes, governor signs. But I would recommend doing what we want up front. That's just my recommendation.
I agree.
Okay.
Chair?
Yes, Councilmember Gully. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I couldn't keep count with the heads. Anyways, most of the council is here tonight. So I think that we can, I mean, I don't see why we can't. I feel the same way. I mean, Steve, is this something is there any negatives to doing that? That's what I want. Is there any negatives to opening up to homeowners throughout the city, make this a homeowner 485 tax exemption program? Is there a negative to us on that?
Well, if you'd like it, so the negative, as I said, is just that a lot of these properties in the better areas are going to get renovated anyways. So you would lose some increase in taxes. On the other hand, you'll get them eventually. It's money you're not getting right now. And any improvement in property is a great improvement in property. And we all know there's, bad properties in good neighborhoods. So we could do it. I mean, I still like the idea downtown of having it for the 1 to 4 units, or we could have the other census tracts be for owner occupied houses. You could make it for one families or two families, or however you wanted to do it. I hadn't really considered that really until now, but if you wanted to include it, I mean, we could have just included 1 to 4 units in the whole city if you wanted.
That's kind of like what I was thinking. I mean, maybe we could get some of these landlords to, put some investment back into their building. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, hey, there's a lot of heads here.
Chair. Oh, go ahead, Sue.
Well, that was why I initially asked the question, because as I'm reading this, in my district, just one census tract, which I agree is that's definitely an area 406, but there are also a lot of other properties in that district that I think would benefit from incentive. So I agree. I think if it isn't going to be a huge hit, let's expand it.
Okay. Let me draft up. Whew.
Can I jump in, Chair?
Yes. Sorry, go
Thank
ahead.
you.
I wasn't sure if your hand was. ahead.
That's okay. Steve, before I do, just so folks know, the council, I did receive the legislation late this evening. I started looking through it at the beginning of this evening's meeting and it'll go out tomorrow morning. Julia will get it out to everyone. But saying that this legislation, Steve, is on it, do you think you and Dylan could amend it and, get it back, with Rick in good fashion? If not, I'm thinking for next week's finance, we could postpone it. I could call finance for the February, and that'll give you more time to work on it. And I'll call finance before the February meeting, and you could get it to us a week before that.
Council
That
President,
would,
before we agree to that, I tend to much prefer when we can actually discuss at both a finance and then a regular 2 weeks apart. I think there are significant financial impacts to this that we should be talking about at the finance meeting, and then making amendments based on that.
Okay.
We can make those amendments on the floor at the regular. We can pass it through finance if we like where it's headed, but we can board those amendments for passage at the regular.
Okay, I do have to ask you, Chair, do you mind introducing, there's going to be this one requesting the state ledge, and then there's another one that Steve will also plans to talk about tonight. So I am just going to ask you to sponsor those, okay? Yep, okay.
I just did some back of the envelope calculation, $50,000 evaluation between local school and between city, county, and library and school taxes is about $2,200 a year. So that's the abatement maybe one of those $50,000 projects would get for the first few years, and then that would fade away as it continues forward. Obviously the calculation here is, are we just giving a tax break to folks who are investors that have plenty of money and are the tax base we're looking to build, or are we actually creating a strong incentive for folks to invest that $50,000? And certainly, I think we have seen the power of this incentive for the larger developments, and it really does help make them possible for folks. I think it would be good to get a little bit of input from maybe the banking sector on what this means for people's ability to get home equity loans. Does this make that a little bit easier for folks to get the funding they need if they don't have it in cash, so that they can do those renovations on their buildings?
Chair. Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Ash McPherson.
I just want to say, I don't feel we should be rushing into this very quickly. I think we should, as you were saying, a little bit more looking at and getting the information and putting this off a little bit further. So I agree with kind of going a little bit further to get more information. So we're all making the same a decision that, is right for And I like the idea for the single family homes as well. So if we could just not rush it through, I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Could I ask, was the general feel that it's single family homes in the other areas, or is it the same, just the citywide 1 to 4 units?
I was under the assumption it was going to be looking for a single home as well.
Well, the single families are already included in the areas in the eligible tracts.
But
So the
throughout,
question is, if we expand it, is it just expanding it to single family homes, or we're expanding it to everyone? Not everyone, but 1 to 4 units.
right. That's why you need a little bit more time. I think it would be for all of it.
Okay, and I'll reach out to Sharon Martin as
Yeah.
well in the building department, get an idea of,
My
in those
tendency
areas.
would also be for all of it. My gut would be that one of the biggest opportunities here is encouraging people to renovate their second and third apartments so that they are occupiable. If they're not, I think there are a fair number of buildings in our city with less than total occupancy. And that's, I think, a big opportunity for developing our housing stock. And that's, I think, one of the places where people are going to get hit hard with an abatement increase. With an assessment increase if we don't have this program. So I think that's one of the big benefits to it. I think your basic maintenance on a single family isn't necessarily going to result in an increase in assessment. Some of it will, obviously, if it's a major upgrade, but your basic maintenance won't. Whereas with the enabling reoccupancy of another floor, that's where we get the value.
And it's important to note that we already have this type of exemption for up to $70,000. So that's already something that's on the books. This is for above and beyond that. And that's citywide.
100,000 and over, right? You said 100,000 over?
This is, I think, 75,000 and up.
I thought you said 100. Okay.
I've got the legislation right here. I gotta look. I'll look at that as we're doing it. I forgot. Was it 75,000 or 100? Probably in the end here.
100.
Chair?
Yes, Councilmember.
While Steve's looking for that, I just wanted to mention, so as we're talking through this, I also agree we want to take our time, understand the fiscal impact. I forget, I think it was 25 years was the pilot for homeowners that Steve was proposing. I mean, was it 25 or 20? I can't remember.
It's 15.
15, sorry, okay. So, if that was going to be a problem, we could look into shortening that period of time or having a shorter period maybe for certain areas of the city. The census tracts that were not included in the original map, maybe they'd be shorter periods of time. I'm not saying I'm supporting that. I'm just saying it's something to look at if the fiscal impacts are going to be too great. Well, also, I definitely would like to give preference to owner-occupied properties for sure. We definitely want to encourage people to be living in their properties. So anything we can do to make it more positive for those folks, I think would be good.
I think just the fact that this ends as soon as it's sold incentivizes those longer term property owners. I guess I do want to make sure there's not a loophole there with someone putting it in an LLC and selling the LLC rather than the property. But assuming we don't allow that kind of loophole, then I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Chair?
Yes, Council President Mantello.
I really think and this is just my opinion, as I said, I have to recuse myself, but folks are going to see what you're seeing now in the legislation that Steve and Dylan has worked on. And, my recommendation is, essentially to potentially not act on it next week and have maybe another meeting to discuss it, because it sounds like there's a lot of ideas, you know what I mean? And I think what's in front of us is, not really everything everyone wants. So that's just my opinion. I would like to see it discussed more rather than acted on.
Could I just ask President Mantello, at what point, what's the latest we want to get this to the state?
You have time. I mean, honestly, right now, especially home rule bills, they're not really acted on until toward the end. So that's why I'm saying, and that's why I said kind of push it out. I wasn't recommending to speed it up. So my recommendation is, Steve, Dylan, we have another meeting. We invite Dylan to it. Steve takes all the comments tonight. Maybe next week at finance, we discuss it again. Maybe at that meeting from there, Dylan, Steve will be able to really work something up with Rick based on our discussion. And then we could get it to the ledge, I'm thinking by March. It's not going to get acted on quickly, but certainly you want a bill number. But I think it's fine getting it to the legislature by the March meeting, or even if we're ready at the February finance, we could always have a special then. But my recommendation is to, let's incorporate what everyone wants.
Okay, I'll be happy to do that. So
what does everyone else think? Does that sound good?
I think that's what we were saying.
Fine to take our time. Well, for now, we'll keep it on the agenda for finance, but we'll likely push it forward depending on the discussion then.
Yeah. Perfect.
Great.
I agree. There's no need to rush it.
All right. Well, thank you. That was a productive discussion. So we'll go back to the drawing board and tweak it.
Thank you.
The next home rule legislation, I would like to move forward at this one. And this is, I think, a little more straightforward. And it's really to correct the IDA law that we have right now. We have state enabling legislation. And I have 6 changes that we'd like to make to it. And I believe that is included in your package. And I can run through the 6 quickly. One is we're just correcting lingering historical references to city manager and treasurer. So we're correcting those. Then the second one is we're eliminating the automatic corporate termination clause. So basically, when the bonds have been repaid, the IDA ceases to exist. And right now, the IDA's only got one outstanding bond with RPI. So this changes the language, basically, that as long as we have outstanding pilot issues, then we continue to remain an entity. And I mean, we could get around that in a clutch if we had to. I'm sure we could issue a bond, whatever. There's ways around it, but it makes more sense just to clean it up. And all the other IDAs have already gotten this change made for them. So most of the IDAs in the state are under public authorities law, and we are under a different law. I'm trying to remember now what it was. So we're under a different law, us and Auburn County. So when they corrected the IDA laws, they didn't correct us and Auburn County. So anyway, so we want to get the same protection the other IDAs have. Then also some more minor technical corrections on punctuation errors. And then adding back retail restrictions. So basically all the other IDAs lost their ability to do certain types of retail. So if it was mostly a shopping mall, you really couldn't be able to do it. However, we still have a lot of, so we're like one of the few IDAs, one of 2 that can do them. But making this change, we are still able to do residential for certain uses like tourism uses, or where it's the only way to get that product in the city. We could exempt it for that, or if it's in a census tract, like all of downtown. So basically, whatever ask we make of the state, they're going to demand that we put this in there, the retail restriction. So we're just putting it in advance, and it really won't make that big of an impact to us. Number 5 is, again, technical corrections to section references. And the 6th one is basically, right now, the city comptroller's office, we have to deposit and manage our funds through the city comptroller. We have our own accounts, but Andy Petrowski has to review, sign everything. And basically, this, just like any other IDA, just like the CRC already is, and like the LDC already is, allows us to have, we write the checks, we sign the checks, and the city comptroller's office still has full audit and review powers. So it's really not changing anything except who has to sign the checks. And again, he signs the checks, they come out of the IDA's account. And now it was just, our treasurer would be able to sign the checks. So those are the 6 changes, and it really, most of them bring them in line with other IDAs around the state. So should I jump quickly into the next one and hope that there's no questions on it? Or do I have any questions?
Chair,
Yes, Councilmember Ashby Grayson.
Steve, I just wanted to ask, you have Vice Chair Paul Carroll. He's not the vice chair anymore, is he?
No, he's not. The vice chair, it's on old letterhead. This was from last year. So Paul's no longer on it. The vice chair, say you and Asha?
It's,
I don't remember. The chair is
Josh.
Justin Nadeau.
Josh Chapone?
Yeah, Josh. Sorry, I haven't had to use him yet.
All right, I was just wondering because it's dated January 2021, and that's why I was thinking, okay.
Actually, this was dated January 7th, 2020, and we were getting ready to bring it to the council. I got delayed, and then COVID hit, so I just updated the date and didn't change the letterhead.
Okay, just checking.
Yep.
Thanks.
Chair.
Okay.
Yes, Council President Mantillo.
Perfect. Anasha, I will need you to introduce this one also, if that's okay.
Sure. I guess as a board member of the ID, I don't think that's a problem. Does anyone?
No, I mean, Councilmember Zaluski, I'm sure wouldn't mind introducing if you felt, obviously representing the council, but.
Sure.
I think it's fine. If nobody sees a problem with it, I don't either.
Either way, I'm happy to step in but yeah, it's whatever.
Thank you.
All right. And finally, the first discussion, or I should say the second discussion on the Diamond Rock senior apartments. So if you remember about a year ago, we had a proposal before us. Michael Ussolini is trying to sell these to clean up the estate of his father and get rid of the property. This has an affordable housing restriction on it through the Housing and Community Renewal Corporation that runs through, I'm sorry, I've got two, okay, it runs through 2031 on Diamond Rock 1 and 2033 on Diamond Rock 2. And actually, I'm going to just kind of bring this up for you. So you have a letter in your packet requesting an extension of Diamond Rock 1 from 2024, when it currently expires, to 2028. I'm going to share my screen just so you can look at the details and not. And this is is it not up?
I can see that now.
Okay, so if you look at the little table I've got in there, Diamond Rock 1 expires in 2024. And the affordability agreement with Housing and Community Renewal expires in 2031. Diamond Rock 2 expires in 2028, and that one expires with Housing and Community Renewal in 2033. So what Vesta Corporation is looking to do, and we have Louis and Alexandra on the phone to answer or on the meeting to answer any questions, is they're looking to extend Diamond Rock 1 for 4 years as is, so it's coterminous with Diamond Rock 2, and then ask for a 5-year extension to the end of 2033. And the way they're paying right now is based on net operating income after utilities. They're paying 7.35% of net operating income after utilities, which for DRI 1 is 58,000 roughly per year, and for DR2 is 25,000 per year. So what other communities are doing is charging or asking for 10%. That's the kind of the standard rate in the state, 10% after net operating utilities. So for the 5-year extension, it would jump from 7.35% to 10%. So that is what they're asking for. And I think, I've looked through their pro forma. There's not a lot of money in these for the purchasers of these properties. The affordable housing is not a big money maker because the rents are so much lower than market rates. And this property really provides, it's a great quality senior living or senior housing in Troy. And again, they're looking just to extend it because there's this affordability agreement with HCR there anyways. There are other avenues that they could take with the city. It's I can't remember what the name of it is. It's a 581A, which is an as of right tax exemption that they're able to go for. And this is a lot easier to manage for us than the other policy. So basically, that's what the ask is. I figured we could talk about it a little bit tonight. Again, the legislation, I don't know if the legislation ended up going out with this to the council president for next week. But again, let's start the discussion on it tonight. So,
Chair,
Yes, Council President.
I'm reviewing legislation as everyone's talking, but I'm also paying attention. Hold on one sec. I do not believe it is part of the packet. It is not part of next week's packet. Okay?
Okay. Well, I'd like to at least discuss it tonight. I'll talk, and again, that was mostly my fault why it didn't get in there. I had sent some of the legislation last week, but again, I think at least this is a planning committee to update you so we can at least talk about the merits of the proposal tonight.
Great.
Chair?
Yes, Councilmember Ash McPherson. I don't know if is there more of a presentation before we start questions or?
Not really from me, unless you care to ask Louis or Alexandra.
No, well, we can go to Councilmember Ash McPherson for starters.
Thanks. So, Steve, just to pull me up to speed on this, okay, because I wasn't on the council when any of this was going on. When I'm reading this, the Ussolini brothers, they own the property now and they want to sell it to, or did they sell it to?
There's an option. There's an option to Vesta Corp to purchase it.
To purchase it. And okay, so when Ussolini got it, they got a pilot back in 1998, correct?
I believe they got the pilot in 98 and they've done an extension on it already. So they had an option for a certain period of time with an option.
So we've had a couple extensions on this property, on these properties already, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we've had one extension already.
We've never hit the max of the extension. It's never been completed. We just keep on extending it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think with these affordable housing projects, I don't think there's ever an intent on a developer that they're going to be paying full taxes. I think it's as when this ends in 2033, they would probably go to the housing community renewal and look to redo the project. So, I mean, that's what they're there. They provide a benefit. They provide a benefit to the community. But I believe that's how it would most likely work.
So the pilot's never going to end by keep on extending it.
Potentially, unless the affordability contract went away and then it became market rate. So it's either affordable and it stays, or it's market rate and it goes away, and then you have to relocate the tenants.
It looks like Louis Brown has a note on this. Is that correct? Say
what?
It looked like Louis Brown might have a note to say on this. Is that all right, council member?
Yes.
Were you trying to jump in there, Louis?
Can we go back to full screen of participants?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. There's Louis.
I think your mic on your headphones isn't working, unfortunately. You might need to just go to the system mic. Nope.
And he has something to say.
We can give you a minute. There is an option to change the audio to a call-in at the microphone button at the bottom there. You can switch to phone audio if that helps, or you may be able to just unplug the mic and use your computer's microphone if there is one.
And while we're waiting, there are 55 apartments in the Bryce proposal with
got
an average of 1,100 square feet.
Yeah.
Good to put that on the record, thank you.
And Steve, if you could give her my information to reach out to me, or you, whoever wants to do the walk around with me on that, it would be nice.
I'll do that. He's calling in, I guess. And hopefully he can do a better job.
Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
So Steve, what you're saying is that if the extension doesn't occur, they can go to the state and they could get a program. Is that what you're saying?
There's so the state has a housing and community renewal already has they already have an affordability contract with them that goes for a certain period. But there is state law that allows, it's kind of an as of right. I don't know if, I think they just apply for it, but it's still through us. We just don't have to approve it. I've never worked on one. I've just spoken at length with Duncan Barrett about them. And that there is a way, because a lot of communities were trying to prevent affordable housing. So this is this allows for the provision of affordable housing.
Chair, so what's the difference, Steve, whether they go through us or through the affordable?
Well, I think if they go through the 581, there's a reassessment that the assessor has to do every year. It's just a lot more work on our part of what we have to do to maintain it. And I think.
But what are we maintaining?
I have not done one. I can get you a little more information on exactly how they work, or probably Lewis, when he gets on, can explain them, because I think he's been involved with them.
Alexander, do you work with Lewis? We do have one call-in listener.
Alexandra, she might be able
I
to.
do. Hi, I do work with Lewis. I'm sorry. I am watching my text messages to see if he's going to let me know what he wanted to share.
No, I just wanted to confirm. We do have one attendee in listener mode. I wanted to make sure it wasn't him, and it was a phone number with a 860 area code.
That would be Lewis. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's see what happens if we move him into a participant.
And now unmute.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear me now?
Much better.
All right. Well, you can't see my face, but I'm not going to apologize about that. So,
That's right.
I'm glad that you can hear me now. I was having some technical difficulties. If I might just step back and tell you a little bit about Vesta and kind of where we are, if that's helpful, quickly. We are under contract to purchase Mr. Ussolini's property, Diamond Rock Terrace, which is an affordable senior property on Gurley Avenue. We are affordable housing owners, operators, and developers. We have approximately 10,000 apartments, and all we do is affordable housing. We have recently gone through the pilot process in Guilderland on another affordable senior deal, very similar to this. And as was mentioned earlier, on affordable housing deals such as Diamond Rock Terrace, there's not a lot of income. And so really, in order to meet what has kind of within our society become a huge need for quality affordable housing, and in particular senior affordable housing, oftentimes these deals rely upon pilot agreements where they're located with the municipality. And Diamond Rock Terrace is no different, and really relies upon the pilot agreement. So we are looking to do a couple things, as has already been stated. We're looking to make coterminous the pilot for phase one that ends in 2024 with the phase 2 pilot that ends in 2028. So those two would line up and be coterminous. And then we're asking for an additional 5-year extension. And when that 5-year extension occurs, as has already been described, the pilot payment would jump up from 7.35% based on the formula to 10%. And that would also bring the properties in line with the end of their affordability. So as the affordability period naturally ends, so too would the pilot. At that point in time, Vesta and the city would have a conversation. You know, Vesta could, I guess, have options. We could allow the property to go market rate and pay what the taxes would then be, though Vesta is not a market rate owner or developer. So it would be our preference as owners of affordable housing to continue to operate Diamond Rock Terrace as an affordable housing development. And at that point in time, it might be a resyndication of tax credits. It might be and include an extension of the affordability restrictions. And then we would come back to the city and have a conversation about what that might look like vis-a-vis either a new pilot or, as has been previously mentioned, availing ourselves of some other legislation that is available for affordable housing communities in the state of New York. But as it stands right now, our interest is in maintaining and preserving the affordable housing for the senior residents that live there. We do not want people to be displaced because of their income. And so that's what we're looking to do. And in order to do that and to do it in a meaningful way, the property relies on the pilot agreement, and in this case, on the extension of the pilot agreement. So I'm happy to answer questions. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. Allie, who's also on the call, is here to answer whatever questions you might have either tonight or next week when I know that the Finance Committee is meeting. But
Sure.
and I want to thank you for the opportunity to present this request to you. We certainly appreciate it, and we think it's in the best interest of the property, but also more importantly of the residents who live at the property.
Yes.
Sure.
Grayson.
Thank you. Thank you. Is it, I can't see your name anymore. Lewis, is your first name?
Yes, Lewis. Yep.
Hi, Lewis.
Hi.
I asked Steve, and he said you'd probably be better off, you could answer this question. If the council said no to this pilot, he's stating that you can go to the state and get it anyways. And I asked, what's the difference?
You could just do the as of right process a little bit.
The 581A.
The 580, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So it is for us to have the pilot agreement in writing really is a requirement of our lender. So the way that we're financing this transaction will be through what we call agency debt, Fannie or Freddie. And Fannie or Freddie likes to see, in this case, an extension of the pilot agreement that is coterminous with the term of their debt. And so they have seen the underlying pilot agreement, and our lender has come back and said that Fannie or Freddie would want to underwrite this particular property to an extension of that pilot agreement.
So you couldn't go get your own through the state. It has to go through us, is what you're saying.
That's the strong preference, yes. And in fact, the pilot agreements, as you know, and has already been talked about this evening, the pilot agreements don't expire until 2024 and 2028 respectively. So all we're essentially asking for is a 5-year extension of the latter, the 2028 pilot termination. So the pilot agreements that are currently in place, they're not expiring. They run through 2024 and 2028. under Mr. Ussolini, under what was granted to Mr. Ussolini. And so in essence, what we're asking for is an extension of what you had already agreed to. From a process standpoint, I think the pilot agreement is, it's, I think as Stephen articulated, it's cleaner both for us as the owner and also for you as the taxing authority or the beneficiary of the real estate taxes. The pilot agreement it's clear. The percentage is clearly articulated and really, doesn't leave anything up to kind of guesswork or the imagination. So I think for both parties, it makes more sense to operate under, and we're willing to, as we said, increase up to 10% starting in 2028 under both pilot agreements. It seems to me it's a cleaner way to approach this rather than shifting to another statutory vehicle.
Thank you.
Sure.
Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
Hi, Lou. How are you? Jim Gully.
Hi, how are you?
Good. When you were looking to purchase this property, I'm sure you had to review the pilot that was in place and the specifics behind it, and also the retirement dates of them. And I'm just wondering, and I you have to understand, I have to look at it from the taxpayers. The taxpayers have endured 30 years, by 2028, 30 years of a pilot on that property already, and you're asking for a 5-year extension beyond that. When you were evaluating this property, were you looking at this as a fact that you were going to need to do this to buy the property, or did that just come up when you tried to reach out for financing?
No, I guess we expected it would come up from our lender, having experienced this, as I mentioned, just recently in Guilderland. So it was something that we anticipated having to come and have this very conversation.
So one other question.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Do you have more to add? I apologize.
No, that's it. Thank you.
So one other question. If we looked at it and we were able to bring those dates up to 2028 and we did not give you the 5-year extension at this time, does that still allow you to move forward with the property?
We would have to relook at all of our kind of underwriting assumptions is what I would say. Certainly we have a strong interest in acquiring the property, but it was using a certain set of financial underwriting assumptions. And if the pilot went away in 2028, I think both we and our financing sources would have to, take a look at what that meant for the property. And regardless, I'd say regardless of whether it meant we could or couldn't acquire the property, I think the other piece of the question is, what does that mean for the property itself, regardless of who owns it? So right now you have what is filling a kind of a critical need in the city for affordable senior housing. If the pilot goes away in 2024 and 2028, I think it's a question that is going to have to be raised regardless, because if the taxes jump up, the question is, can the property actually support that increase? And I think that the property could be faced with some financial hardship if that were the case. Because you're going to have a property, and this is exactly what we faced in Guilderland, this exact fact pattern. You're going to have a property that has restricted rents and residents who have restricted income levels, but a pilot agreement that is expiring, and therefore, if the taxes jumped up significantly, again, whether it's Vesta or Mr. Ussolini or some other owner, is going to have potentially a problem on their hands as to whether the property has the financial wherewithal to meet its obligations. So that's an issue, again, regardless of our request, it's an issue that I think someone is going to face in the future. And so we're trying to get out in front of that now as the prospective purchaser of the property. We kind of see that on the horizon, saying we need to address this now rather than in 2028. And we like to be proactive rather than reactive, not only for ourselves, but because we anticipate what could happen to the property and correspondingly what that could mean for residents of the property.
And I understand that. I truly do, Lou. But my question is, and I can understand your passion towards that date, but my question is, if the council approved to bring the two dates together up to 2028, would you purchase the property? You'd have 7 years to prove that value and come back for that extension in the future for that exemption. So if we got you to where they were both up to 2028, that would give you time to put your case together, put your information together, and apply for that 5-year extension. Because as a guardian of the taxpayer's wallet, I mean, the property's had 30 years of exemptions already, and I understand where you're at, but I have to also think, how do we move forward in pieces instead of giving you the whole thing right now and saying, hey, okay, let's do this, out to 2034 or 2033. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying is, and my question is simple, if we talk and we decide to just match the 2 years up to 2028, does that move you forward into your purchase?
Right. No, and I don't mean to be evasive in terms of answering your question. I think, and I also respect that you and your fellow members take your role and responsibility as a fiduciary and, as you said, a guardian of the taxpayers' money very seriously, as would I in your shoes. What I'm suggesting is, I don't know that I can answer that question tonight. Again, I don't want to be evasive, but what will end up happening is, I think that we'll run into an issue vis-a-vis what our lender will allow and won't allow in terms of their own underwriting. The lender's not going to make a loan, and let's say that the term is 12 or 15 years. They're not going to underwrite a loan under the assumption that we can go back and request this in 5 or 7 years. They just won't underwrite to that. So they'll look at it when they underwrite to the loan. Will underwrite it as if, because you know how lenders are more conservative. They're going to underwrite it as if we will not get an extension in 7 years, rather than we could. They have a similar fiduciary duty as the lender to
Yep.
Correct. And so that's the way they'll look at it. And so that will create an issue for us, or for anyone for that matter, not just us, but for anyone who's looking to acquire this property, that will become an issue. And I think really the tricky kind of balancing act, I think, is, yes, I appreciate and I respect what you've raised about the taxpayers' money. On the other hand, you also have a property of 117 apartments that is housing seniors who are on limited incomes. And if the property runs into financial peril because taxes go up, the flip side of the coin is, you're faced with a situation where you've got residents who might be displaced. I don't mean to be kind of create a doomsday scenario, but I'm just trying to present kind of an alternate set of facts, which is, none of us want to see senior residents displaced from their homes because of financial instability of the property. So we've had this conversation, in different states and different municipalities, and it's always a balancing act. And I think the proposal that we've made, I think, is reasonable and tries to take into account both the issues the sensitivities and real issues that you've raised regarding taxpayers, together with the other factor of, keeping seniors who have limited incomes appropriately housed. And so it's always a balancing act. And we think what we've presented is is kind of a fair middle ground with increasing the percentage of the pilot while at the same time asking for a short extension of it.
Thank you for your answer.
Chair, I think we may be getting hung up on that big bugaboo word pilot. What I think, bugaboo pilot.
Yeah.
We're not talking luxury housing here. We're not talking about the
I know what we're talking about.
$3,000 apartments here. We don't have enough affordable housing in Troy as it is, and we need to protect what we have. So
Yeah.
I'm great.
Thank you. I did want to get just some clarifications and specifics. The first is this proposed 10%. Is that split up between the various taxing authorities?
So what it is it's 10% of the net operating income. That's what comes in, and yes, that gets prorated. So again, you're not talking. I mean,
Yep.
I was just kind of running some numbers here, and the difference between what they're paying right now, they're paying about 50% right now of what they would if it was just market rate. And then what the city gets of that, you're talking probably like, and again, I'm just winging these numbers real quick, is about $40,000 to the city on one and maybe 10,000 on the other. So those are the numbers we're talking about between a pilot or no pilot.
Okay. And then in terms of what we're actually talking about in terms of affordable, I think a couple years ago we were talking about sort of the 850 range for a 1-bedroom, 1,000 range for a 2-bedroom. Have those gone up a bit? Where are they at now?
Allie, do you want to speak to the current rents and AMI restrictions, please?
Sure. So this property was built in 2 phases. The first phase is 81 units. The second is 36. The first phase is fully restricted at 60% AMI. And that for a 1-bedroom, the max rent is $1,040. The actual current rent at this property for a 1-bedroom in that first phase is $860. A 2-bedroom in that same phase at 60% AMI, area median income, is $1,024.
That's that's current. Yeah.
That's current. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In the first phase. And I'll note that the second phase is all 2-bedrooms, so those 36 units, and those have lower income restrictions. So at 30% AMI, 50% AMI, and 60% AMI. So there you have a handful of 2-bedroom units that are rented at about $450 a month, ranging up to about $950 a month.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions for now?
Chair?
Yes, Council President Mantello.
Yes, thank you all for the questions, answers. I wanted to just let everyone know, because I know that I'm so sorry, I forgot your name. Lewis? Is it Lewis? Yes, that's what I thought. Lewis, you had mentioned it's on the finance right now. It is not on the finance agenda. So I think maybe you conked out when I informed folks it was not in the legislative packet. So it is not on finance, but it's very, very important that we're discussing this now. I guess my big question, do you have any plans to improve any amenities, anything in the works for upgrades? I do know it was built several decades ago. So do you have a timeline and any plans for upgrades?
We do, and thank you for asking. That's a great question and an important one. We do have an upfront budget to make both interior and exterior upgrades. So as well as capitalizing reserves so that the property is in good physical shape for the long term. We're long-term owners, and so we always look at what are the things that need to get done immediately, and then how do we fund and finance repairs as they should arise over the course of the next 20 years. So yes, we have an upfront capital budget, and then we will have reserves funded both upfront through our lender, and then those get also funded on a monthly basis through rents. If anyone's been to the and I agree with everything that you said, and that's why I answered in that way. Having been to the property, and it's I guess a credit and a testament to Mr. Ussolini and his company. The property is very well kept, both on the interior and on the exterior. So while it was built, 20-ish years ago, it is in very good shape. Having said that, we do plan to make certain interior and exterior upgrades.
Yes, absolutely. They do keep the property very nice. And for the most part, I don't hear too many complaints from residents and the property. I know a few people who reside there and a couple of people who did reside who unfortunately have passed away. But it does sound a little bit, Louis, much different of a proposal that was put in front of the council a couple years ago. So I do appreciate that fact also, because that actually was voted down for, other reasons, but stating that I do appreciate your, willingness to move forward with a capital plan. And I do like that part of it. I would like to see that. I don't know if you have maybe something that you could send the council. Just in terms of additional information, I think that would be really helpful.
Okay. Yes, we can do that. May I ask a form question rather than substance? And I did not hear it. I apologize. It must have been when I was calling back in. Is there a way for us to get on? It was our understanding that tonight was a precursor to our being on the Finance Committee's agenda next week, where we would also participate and be able to answer questions. Is there a way for us to get on the agenda?
Steve, I believe, did try.
Yes. So I'm going to try.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Okay. If Steve has the legislation, I'm sure if he gets that to our corporation council, it may not make the original agenda, but I will say we would like it by Monday at the latest, because we are meeting on Thursday. So saying that, our members don't like last minute, but certainly if Steve can get that to Rick, or if Rick already has it, Steve, we may be able to get it in the packet tomorrow. I would prefer it be in the packet tomorrow. So, Louis, to your answer, there's some work Steve has to do. So if he can, get it to Rick in time, get it back to, myself, we can get it onto the agenda tomorrow.
Terrific. That would be greatly appreciated.
And I'm working on that. He has it already. He did get it late from me. So I'm pulling some strings if I can.
Okay. And I would just ask Louis, whoa, whose dog is that? I would ask Louis if you could send Steve any backup of items and issues that we spoke about. That could be included in the packet. I think that would be very worthwhile for the council. And then obviously we would meet next week and ask you to be at that meeting also.
Absolutely. We planned on being there, so we'll absolutely be there, and we can on the capital side, we can provide you with, what our upfront budget is and items that, we plan to address. And if there's anything else that you think would be relevant to try to anticipate questions, we're happy to give as much detail as we possibly can so that people feel comfortable with, what we're presenting and the proposal that we're making.
I have one
Thank
question
you.
on that front, which is either for now or for the future, which is how the building is heated and cooled. Is it all electric or?
Can you ask the question again? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just wondering how the building is heated.
Gas.
Yes. I know there's obviously a lot of incentives from the state right now. I'm wondering if that's a place you're looking at electrical heat pumps.
We have not explored that as an option at this time.
Okay. How does that affect? I know there are lots of other affordable housing projects tend to go that way because it allows them to reduce their ongoing costs while putting more of it in the upfront costs. I don't know if that makes sense for your sort of financing model, or if you're trying to keep the upfront costs relatively low.
No, we do look at that, and when it kind of makes sense, as you said, we will explore those options, and in certain cases we will. We have a property right now that is not too far away where we're converting from oil to gas for that very reason. But in this particular instance, you do kind of a cost benefit of analysis. So we are not planning on making significant upgrades to heating and cooling.
Do tenants pay that, or do you?
Allie, you want to speak to that?
I didn't hear the question.
Is it resident paid utilities or
Okay.
is owner paid?
That was my question.
Residents do pay some of their own utilities. The average monthly cost is about $55 per unit for utilities at this property.
Did you have another question, Councilmember Rashmi-Grayson?
I did. I was asking on that. If I wrote down my notes correctly, you said Diamond 1 is 81 units and Diamond 2 is 36 units.
That's correct.
Right.
So in those units out of there, so the rent, if I wrote them down correctly, is for the 81 units is $1,040 for a 1-bedroom.
Well, that's the max. That's the max rent. So that's not the charged rent. Under the tax credit program, you could legally charge up to that amount, but that's not what the residents are paying. It's
So what
I
are
believe
they?
it was
Sorry.
$840.
$840 they're paying in Diamond 1 for a 1-bedroom, right?
Yes.
And what are they paying in a 2-bedroom?
$1,024.
Okay. So in those rents right there, you're saying the utilities is included in them or not?
It's not included. Those are paid.
So they pay their utilities separately.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Just want to have that clarified. Thank you.
Yeah, and the way that the program works is the max rent that you talked about in the 1-bedroom, you would then add the utility amount to the rent so that the max rent is a combination of rent and utilities. You can't exceed that.
Right, but you're not they're paying their own utilities, so you're charging
Correct.
just right. So that you can't say that
Yes.
because they're paying their own. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
Lou, when they pay those utilities, are they paying that direct to National Grid, or is that something where you guys divide up the cost and divvy it up between apartments?
Direct.
All right, great. Thank you.
Any further questions?
I'm good. Thank you. I'll have more the next time.
Great. Thanks so much.
Could I just ask, I apologize, but while I have you, is there anything else that you think would be relevant for us to include for next week other than what we've already spoken about?
Chair.
Yeah, Councilmember Ashman, please.
I think, Louis, I think that would be your decision. I mean, you want us to look at a pilot extension and whatnot, so that'd be your decision on what you might want to add additional to this.
Okay.
I know we've
Okay.
mentioned it. Were you already including in your notes the actual pro forma, or is that something you're just providing to Steve?
We've provided it to Steve, and I believe.
And I'm sorry, I got distracted for a second. Well, I'll talk to Louis afterwards.
Okay.
And that's all I have. I just want to say thank you to Louis and Alexandra, and I should have let them go first. And that was the plan, and I'm sorry I didn't.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you, guys.
No, we appreciate your time, and thank you again for the opportunity.
I did just want to confirm on that pro forma, since those are sometimes varying degrees of internal. Is that something that?
I apologize. I didn't hear the question.
Steve, are you? I didn't see it so far. Were you planning to share the pro forma with us? And is there any problem doing that?
I don't use, well, if you individually want to look at it, I guess I could share that with you. I'm not going to send it out to everyone.
Okay.
If you want to look at it, let me know.
Okay. I'm letting you know.
Okay.
Lou, are you
No
comfortable with that?
You know, it just shows the income and expenses. So I don't, you know, there's nothing to hide.
Great.
Thank you. I'd like to see it too, Steve.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis.
Yeah, no, again, thank you very much. And we look forward to meeting again next week and getting you some more information in advance of that meeting.
Great.
And Alexandra, sorry.
No problem. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
I think that concludes our business.
Thank you. And I've got some follow-up items. I'll get going on them tonight.
I'll take a motion to adjourn unless there's anything further.
So move.
All right. Motion a second. Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.